Hello, BASD community. Yesterday, the Bethlehem Area School District participated in a press conference along with other districts from across the state to emphasize the need for additional state funding for Pennsylvania school districts in the coming budget year. The need for this funding is primarily driven by state mandates that cost districts money. And when the state doesn't keep up their fair share of paying for the mandates, the cost gets foisted on the backs of local taxpayers, property taxpayers. So I wanted to show a couple slides to make this point. There are three primary cost drivers: pensions, on this slide shown as PSERS, charter schools, also shown on this slide, and special education, which we'll get to in the next slide. So in this slide, you'll see that over 16 years, the cost to the Bethlehem Area School District for both pension and charter schools has increased 752%. That's money that is coming out of the school district budget, driven primarily and completely really by state mandates. State funding has not kept up with the cost of those mandated expenses. The second area that I wanted to mention quickly of state mandates is special education. Special education laws come from both the federal and the state level, and the laws are needed and appropriate to make sure that school districts address the needs, the special learning needs of students. However, the state's share of paying for the requirements under that law has not kept up with the growing cost of special education services. So in this slide, if you take a look on the right side, the 13-14 school year, the Bethlehem Area School District share of special education costs was 73.47%, and the state share was 21%. If you move over to the far left in 2021 budget, current year, the district's share of the cost of special education, which has increased significantly, is now up to 80%, and the state share has dropped from 21 to 16%. So that's the challenge. The special education mandated costs increase while the state share has not increased proportionately, so the local property taxpayers in Bethlehem end up having to take a bigger load on their shoulders to fund these state mandated costs. Charter schools are another major issue, as the first slide showed, a major cost driver. And one of the areas where the state has really pulled the plug on districts with regard to funding actually goes back about a decade. When charter schools were first came into existence, the state reimbursed districts, called the Charter School Subsidy, reimbursed districts for a portion of the cost of charter school tuition. Because when a student leaves a school district, we have to pay the tuition, but our costs don't go down the same. So if a student now is costing us $13,000 for a regular education student, our costs don't go down by $13,000 because we still have the teacher, we still have the buildings, we still have to pay our mortgage. Just like if a single family member left your home, older child moves out, for example, you still have your built-in expenses that you have to pay for your home and for your family. So the state understood this and reimbursed districts for a portion, about 25 to 30% of the charter school cost. But back in 2010, the state arbitrarily decided they're not paying that anymore. So it went from the blue line, which you could see steadily increasing, to zero in the 2011-12 school year, and then it's remained at zero. At the same time, our charter school tuition cost, for a variety of reasons, has increased significantly over those years. So all the time that the district could have been receiving literally millions of dollars in state reimbursement hasn't happened. If the state were to reinstate the charter school subsidy, which was in the original funding formula for charters, it could mean as much as $5 or $6 million a year for our school district, which would go a long way to balancing our budget without the need for a tax increase. And then finally, to put things in context, the BEF stands for the Basic Education Funding. This is the largest amount of money that the state sends to the school district focused on instruction and supporting the education of children. What this slide shows is that over time, as charter tuition has increased that the district has to pay, and the state BEF, basic education funding, has not kept pace, that more and more of the educational funding the BASD receives from the state is now consumed by charter school tuition. So if you look to the far left, 0607, you can see that the blue line is the BEF, the red line is the charter school cost. So we had, after paying the charter school cost, the red portion there, we still had plenty of money, 16.5 million left over for the 14,000 students in the Bethlehem Area School District to pay to go to our budget. If you go to the far right, our projected budget for 21-22, because the BEF from the state hasn't kept up with costs, now basically the entire revenue that the BASD receives from the state, the basic funding, is consumed by charter tuition, leaving our projected a mere $33,000 to put towards the educational programs of the 14,000 students in the Bethlehem Area School District. So these challenges that are pushed onto the districts and onto local taxpayers are the result of unfunded mandates. We have to pay, but the state hasn't kept up with their fair share of helping to offset their mandated costs. So our call is for the state legislature to address this, recognize the increase in costs of charter schools, of special education, and of pensions, and to increase the amount of money that is budgeted to help school districts. Bottom line is, the more support we have from the state, the less we have to rely on local property taxpayers. If the state put all of the money that went into education through what's called the fair funding formula, Bethlehem Area School District would receive $20 million a year more from the state, money that would be a complete game changer for us and completely change the challenges that we face in our budget by increasing our revenue so significantly. So I wanted to share this information with you. The board will be looking at finalizing a budget over May and June. We'll provide additional information as we move forward with this. Thank you very much.